That's exactly where I was going to go. Jigz is usually this imposing guy, not just in lane, but also in team fights. People talk about him as just being really dominant. When you ask them why, he's really mechanically good. It's just a lot of this intangible stuff. It's a combination of intelligence of when to initiate, when to disengage more importantly, and positioning is really crucial for Jigz. And like you said, I just don't think he had enough oomph on the character that he chose to really do what we're used to seeing. And I think Jigz being in that position sort of led itself to Snoopy getting in trouble and some of these other things. But I want to talk about the positives across the way. Denial are inconsistent, but when they look good, they look really, really good. And I think Vetium was a big part of that. It's rare for Neith to look so hot. Right? I mean, she's a very basic character, but Vetium brings out the best.
Especially with the Nemesis ulti, they were able to burst down Baskin so heavily in some of these team fights. We even saw the late game crits come online. I think he had a 783 damage crit at one point around that Fire Giant in the late game. So I like the style that Vetium really brings to his table, being able to always be in position for these team fights.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think when I first saw the draft, I thought that Denial was going to look to pressure Baskin earlier with the Neith ult, but instead they just let Vetium just play his comfort pick, and then late game Homie just ulted him and then he died. It was a different style of countering Baskin, but it was just as effective.
That's exactly what I noticed as well. Giannis going to be the ban out from Denial. Intelligent. And of course, Ao Kwang will be the ban against Denial Esports. We've established that you just can't let Homie really pick that one. Andinster looks to be in good spirits.
So with SoaR losing that last game, they opted to go for a second pick this time around. Denial did win the coin flip. They opted for the first pick for the first game. So SoaR, they're going to stick to their Ao Kwang ban. Last game, they did ban the Raishin second. We'll see if that's something that they like to go for again, or if they're going to try to take away that Nemesis. It's going to be the Raishin again.
The Raijin is a good choice. I think that Hurriwind plays a lot of the Raijin, right? And Hurriwind's god pool is, I don't know, would you say it's exploitable, PBM?
I'm not sure. I think the thing I would look at here is last game they picked the Bacchus like that, and SoaR opted into going Ra and Thor, and I thought that was questionable because Denial's dream 3v3 against that same combo was the Bacchus, the Agni, and the Nem. I would expect SoaR to take the Nem here.
I think that would be a good choice as well. Andinster, see, it's weird. A lot of people seem to think that Nemesis, and I hinted at this last time, but we didn't dive deep into it. A lot of people think that Nemesis is just strictly utility. She doesn't have a large aggressive impact into the game. You always look at the early game pressure, and she lacks it.
And then hi-rez happened.
Yep.
Like that item just makes her power curve so much better. It's no longer Jotun's Void Shield, Spirit Robe, whatever else you want. It's just hi-rez, damage, and then you just kill everybody.
So the hi-rez changed the character. Nemesis was this sort of not Thanatos-esque, but the idea of you just build cooldown into damage immunity.
Well, and the biggest thing on Nem is because she has 2 slows, she gets to weave in so many auto attacks, and her shield is actually like the best auto attack cancel in the game. It's near instant in terms of the cast time, so it's just so free to get a free hi-rez proc and just kill somebody.
And Nemesis is certainly going to do well. Next to that Ra specifically, I mean, double ult, that person's dead. I don't really care who you are. That's a rough spot to be in.
So instead of going for the Thor Ra, they're going to go for the Nemesis Ra, electing to take that option away from Denial. The all-in composition with the Bacchus and Nemesis, not an option for Denial. Do you expect them to pick? Okay, I was going to say
they
were going to pick up the Thor.
No way, yeah.
But the question is, okay, I was going to ask if they were going to pick up the Agni yet again to try to counter the Ra sustain with that Divine Room.
I actually don't really like that much from Denial because I think it's very likely that SoaR goes their support here. And I don't know if they really liked the Soul that game that much on Met. And also, historically, Neith is a very good matchup against the Soul, and that's like one of Vetium's best gods. So I'm interested why they went that pick.
Yeah, I think they wanted to take it away from Metyankey because although last match wasn't, it wasn't the shining star that we kind of
was still there.
Exactly. I think, one bad game does not make a bad choice. So stripping it away from Metyankey, I'm sitting here. I've asked almost everybody that comes to the desk about their opinion on Soul because I just don't have that much stock in her. I don't think that she's really all that strong anymore. But Metyankey specifically might be something to worry about.
I mean, to be fair, they could put Soul mid here, right? And they still could pick up Neith for Vetium, essentially.
Not on Hurry.
Yeah, I don't think SoaR will go to Hurry. I think the other interesting point here is because SoaR and LG are scrim partners, Barra probably has the best Soul in the entire world, so Met has a ton of practice against this pick, so they should be careful about that.
That's a really good point. That's going to be a very big deal as far as this one goes on. Metyankey, what do you think he picks into it?
I'm actually not sure. A lot of times when they go Sobek, you normally go on to one polar end of either Anhur for like early game aggression, or you just give him a hyper carry like Ram or maybe Freya, something like that he can just get out of the early game for free.
We saw actually Vetium play the Ram against Sol in the last set against you guys, being able to really take advantage of Oceans after the Disapparate faded away with all those snipes. Do you think that's something that Metyankey's looking for here?
He could. I think the problem SoaR is going to encounter in this comp is they don't have a lot of hard CC right now, and I think when you have a Ra, we were just talking about how last game Snoopy couldn't find impactful snipes, and I think they might run into that problem this game too if they go that route.
So SoaR actually going to opt to pass their last ban. I like the Agni ban. The Agni ban, if you're going to pass the 4th ban, Agni's a perfect 3rd ban because, well, you might pick something in the mid lane. Maybe Sol goes there. Agni, you don't necessarily want to see it. It's not too bad of a ban. And then that 4th ban, it's a pass. Polar Bear Mike, what could you tell us about the strategy behind passing the ban?
I think the only thing I could think of, I think honestly it's better to just always ban. I'm wondering if they were debating banning soul laners, but they wanted to be careful about shrinking Baskin's god pool, and then maybe they didn't know whether the soul was mid or ADC. And if I'm SoaR, I really want Hurriwind to play that soul, so banning out an ADC wouldn't be like, maybe just ban an ADC and like force the god pool to shrink for Vetium. I don't know. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, honestly, to pass the ban.
Yeah, it's such an interesting choice when you see teams really opt to pass the ban. Usually you see the pass ban come in this case where SoaR get the pick afterwards, so they leave a little bit of ambiguity. Nobody knows what's happening, and then they're able to snap pick their Ram. I think the Ram is going to be a good choice. You mentioned that late game carry for Metyankey later on against the likely Sol. Denial, you're going to put Vamana, or at least think about it, in their solo lane.
And this is something that Benji really likes to do. It was actually Baskin the last game playing the Vamana, but he kind of late game couldn't do much. He was opting for more of a health build, trying to not make the Nemesis ulti as useful, going for the Frostbound Hammer, the Pestilence, even the Winged Blade trying to counter, but he didn't have that much protections despite all the Nemesis ults.
Yeah, Nem is just such a huge problem for Vamana. That was actually one of the few games Vamana has lost this entire LAN, and I'm not sure what to think of the Anhur Sol. I don't really know where that is going. I have seen Hurry play Anhur mid before, a lot more recent than I've seen him play Sol.
Yeah.
I think, if I had to guess, I think they would put the Sol into duo because it does better against the Sobek Rama lane just in terms of pressure, but Denial really has their pick with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my opinion on Sol is pretty much out there, but as far as the individuals are concerned, Metyankey does have a good Sol, and Hurriwind on the Anhur, I've seen it, I'm unfamiliar with how good it is, but as far as just Anhur, the mid lane, I personally love it. I think there's a lot of positives that Anhur can really work with, especially in the 3v3. Denial Esports versus SoaR Gaming. One word, PBM, who wins?
I think SoaR has this game.
I think SoaR has this game. That was 6. One word, Tolly.
Homie.
All right. Homie, and I think SoaR has this game. Hinduman and Aggro bring us many more than one word.
Gonna kind of go with what Polar Bear Mike had to say there. I really do feel SoaR have outdrafted Denial in this pick and ban phase.
Interesting to see if it is going to be Ra mid, like PBM was saying. Anhur mid up against Ra mid for SoaR. Yeah. We'll have to see if it is going to be Anhur mid for Hurriwind. The one thing that Anhur mid has going for it is that it really punishes immobile mages hard. Shifting Sands is one of the best abilities up against immobile gods like Ra. You'll see it's really good up against Zeus, those sorts of things. All that being said, it's going to be SoaR.
It's going to be SoaR in the mid lane. Also going with the Sanctuary start here, Hurriwind as well. A little bit worried about the all-in potential, possibly coming out from the Andinster Snoopy combination. And if you Disapparate is on cooldown, it buys you a few extra seconds one more time.
That's true, it does. And looking at the solo lane matchup here, Vamana again into Nemesis, like we were mentioning. We don't really understand why you're willing to pick into that counter matchup. And the big thing for me is Erlong Shen was open for this Ravana selection.
Yeah.
And Baskin still goes for Ravana. That tells me that Baskin just doesn't like Erlong Shen, because it would have been picture perfect in this composition. It would have been a masterpiece.
On top of the fact that you've got the taunt to set up for the Snoopy as well with the roots, which we've seen coming out from Eager earlier on when they played it in the support role. And on top, I mean, Erlong Shen as well, does he transition better than Ravana into the later stages of the game?
Yes, because he has a lot more significant CC. Only a root on the side of Ravana, and it's a small, little line, whereas the root cripple from Erlong Shen is long range. It can do it from a distance, and you also have the knockup and the taunt, like you mentioned. Plus, you're not giving up really any early game pressure over Robin by going the Erlong Shen. Plus, if you look at SoaR Gaming composition, the one thing that they're lacking is that easy to confirm long-range CC. Usually SoaR has it in the Thor or in the Erlong Shen, even from Jigz running its support. But this time it's really only the Pluck that's going to be doing the hard CC, and that's why you see Hurriwind's able to go for the Sanctuary, as is Homiefe.
How do we feel about the fact that they both went Sanctuary here in the jungle on the side of the now? Both Homiefe and Hurriwind have selected that option.
No problems with it. The only thing you're going to be using Purification for here are against slows, like the ultimate from Nemesis, Slice and Dice, Lurking in the Waters, those sorts of things, and the Pluck from Jigz, which you can also use Sanctuary on and then use one of your movement abilities to get out if necessary. The only problem is that this is going to force both of them to go into, at least Homiefe, I think, should go into an early Winged Blade here.
Well, this duo lane could be very spicy between the two of them as well, just because Jigz is on his preferred Sobek. He loves that god. As does Shadowq on the Bacchus. Pretty much staples for both these two. And then you've got the Rama versus the Anhur as well. Anhur does have a good time in this matchup in the early stages.
I really do like the selection from Metyankey to take Ram away from Vetium, though. He's looked so comfortable
really
on that god. There's no reason to give it to him yet again. Put him on something that we haven't seen him on yet.
Well, no real engagements between the two at the moment, just farm-offs as usual. Potion-wise, nothing too much to really write home about either. Everybody pretty much even for the time being. Where do we expect the fireworks to start flying here, and which side will be the ones to start those fireworks?
I mean, it really could go either way. Once Andinster hits level 5 on this Nemesis, really, if you take one step out of position, you're going to eat that Nemo. You could eat a Snipe as well, and it's going to make it very interesting if Denial can use those Sanctuaries effectively. You've got to hear that raw ult coming to use it effectively.
Well, you saw Vetium in this lane landing a lot of these basic in-hands that are very, very useful on Anhur as well, just because of the passive, reducing the protections of the target. And on top of that, SoaR's done a good job of mitigating how much they've taken. I say that as the flop comes out and Metyankey forced to roll away again.
There's a lot of kill potential in this duo lane between Bacchus and Anhur. I mean, both of them can really make some plays, as well as Sobek. Anytime you've got Sobek in a lane that's losing, you can't really go up to the tower line, because if you get hit by that Pluck and you go into the tower, even taking one tower shot at level 4 or 5 can be a death sentence.
Yeah, big influence there. So Shadowq is just going to watch himself with those flops as well, because once that's on cooldown, he'll take more than one tower shot trying to get away from it as well there. But he's not scared to do it when they approach the lane like this, always looking for the pressure. And this time round, it was onto both of them, split the difference, and a good stun ended up coming through, cancelling out the knock away.
The dash got caught there from Jigz, forced out the shell, which is really important. You actually, the sprint was down from Shadowq. I think they used that to get to lane quicker. Sometimes you'll see teams do that.
Didn't really get to lane that much quicker, though. They did lose lane pressure on both sides, but that sprint didn't work as well as it had done in the past.
No, but they have it up now, and that's all that matters. And the shell is down for Jigz, so that 3v3 engagement, like you were talking about, is going to favor Denial, at least in the relic department. Again, right at level 4, Shadowq backs. He did this exactly the same way last game. Let Vetium get this level 5 wave all by himself, and Shadowq gets a head start to rotating towards mid.
And on top of that, though, he only has tier 2 boots, but he seems quite comfortable with that for now. He'll get there for the second rotation of the speed buff. I guess that's the reason he does this as well, make sure he's available in case there is an engagement there.
I love the split up from SoaR, though. 2 on the speed buff, 2 on the red buff. You're splitting it as efficiently as possible. You're getting your buffs down on the exact same time, basically. Baskin's able to take a wave solo in the right-hand lane, and you saw that 4 people split the speed buff, and now it's going to be 3 people splitting the red buff, so it's not nearly as efficient on the side of Denial.
Well, interesting choice from SoaR, though. They gave the red buff over to Metyankey in the Hunter role, whereas the Hurriwind got the buff for Denial here on that red side. So with that, I mean, it will help out a little bit for Rama.
Exactly. You were talking about how this matchup favors Anhur in the early game. Well, this is one way that you kind of alleviate that pressure that Anhur is going to put on you. Giving your Hunter the red buff means that they have a little bit of a boost in the boxing potential.
Homiefe looking for the first gank of the game. It's going to be onto Metyankey, who's not recognized it yet. He gets
Got the
caught
dash.
in the roll as well. No amount of purification will save you through that, as Vetium landed a very good Desert Fury through the whole thing.
Feels bad whenever you get your roll caught right in the middle of Thor, all perfectly timed by Homiefe, and the purification are down, which means that Met's in a tough spot for the next 145 seconds. Homiefe is going to be right back on that Gold Fury, charging that ultimate again.
See if you can abuse it a little bit more as well. The one thing to mention about that, Pain Devion, he commented on Vetium during the interviews as well, saying that Vetium, you can give him a lead, but he won't carry a game with it. That's his opinion of his old former teammate who went to the World Championships. We'll see if he can do it this time, though.
I don't know if I agree with Pain on that one. I think that might be, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Former teammate might be the reason we hear that comment being made. I'm sure if they were still current teammates that it would have been, oh yeah, I can get Vetium a lead and he'll carry my brains out every sort of game. Vetium's had an unbelievable land. I mean, I know I've talked about him a lot, but in and in my mind, deservedly so. He's really stepped up for Denial and is a big reason why they're still fighting for the #1 seed with SoaR.
Well, after this mid-wave goes down here, small little gold lead for Denial of about 600 at the moment between the two teams. After that first blood going the way of Vetium as well, who now has his full boots online and looks like he's working towards Devour's Gauntlets as well.
Okay, so he's played 2 early game Hunters now. First one was Neath. He built Devour's Gauntlets and went for the late game build. He's playing the Anhur now, more considered an early game god as well.
Round 2.
And still going for this.
Homiefe's ult is up in 7 seconds time. You can see just ticking away in the corner. There's no wards down here at the moment. I don't believe, actually no, I tell a lie, there is a ward down, so SoaR knows something's up here. So Homie giving up the goose and just gonna make sure he picks up some farm.
So Vetium had the option to freeze the wave there, but you didn't want to have your jungler Homiefe wasting his time. Now Shadowq, you get a flop in, Andinster immediately hits the ult, but the rotation for Vetium is enough to make Andy back
There's
up.
a Fury onto Snoopy, and Snoopy's in a whole world of hurt here. Trying to dance around, but the wall and double tap comes into play, allowing Shadowq to pick up the kill. Vetium a little bit out of position there, has to leap over the wall to get to a safer spot, but Jigz are going to do the same thing to Shadowq.
Solo laners have rotated. Double tap going to take a ton of damage off to Metyankey. No impact from the solo lane rotation, and the double wall came in to really hurt Snoopy there. The tectonic rift met up perfectly with the shifting sands, and the chicken had nowhere to go.
Very, very interesting fight that, because it was Shadowq ulting in, sorry, jumping in, and Andinster ulted immediately, and then knowing that ult was down, it forced him out to commit even harder.
Exactly. As soon as Andy ulted, you saw him back up, and he's like, uh-oh, I know what's coming now. If Shadowq's making that sort of play, he has to know what sort of follow-up's going to be there. The follow-up was Homiefe dunking down on the Snoopy, and here we see again the problem with Ra. He's great from if you can just stay in the back and do your thing, but if they get up into your face, if the enemy team is diving you and you don't have enough peel to survive, you're very easily killed.
Well, fight on the right-hand side here as the rotation from Baskin's going to punish Hurriwind quite a bit there.
Great snipe.
And that snipe from Snoopy did so much work. Hurriwind is one more hit from death, but he's at the safety of his tier 2 tower now. You see the pings, but they're not going to be able to find him. They're looking at Vetium instead.
Vetium's crippled right now after the shot from Metyankey. Met's going to go up into the sky, looking for the snipes, finds 2 right off the bat, looking for the third. He's going to find it. Jigz will be able to finish him off on this Sobek, and this is going to open up an opportunity to invade this red buff or do the Gold Fury. SoaR still has the option to do it here.
They do indeed, and I love the play coming out from SoaR Gaming. They're trusting in each other. You saw Metyankey go to the sky early on, knowing that Jigz would give him the vision he needed, but in mid lane, Snoopy has overstayed his welcome, and Supernova, good night. Hurriwind gets credit for the kill, and now Andy, well, he's under pressure too.
No way Homie's going to go for this, is he? No, he's just looking around. Red buff's down, not going to be able to land on that and steal it away. Snoopy just can't go that way, man. You can't do that. That's the end of the day. I mean, you're Ra. You don't have any extra movement outside your passive.
Which way could he have gone? Because, I mean, he was coming back from the red buff towards mid lane is when he got picked there. I mean, would he have gone towards the Gold Fury dual lane side?
North. You just go. You could stay in the mid camp area. Just go north. You want to go the safe way. All of Denial was coming up the middle lane directly. They weren't in the jungle. They wouldn't have been able to catch him without using Homiefe's ultimate. Yeah, you could have gotten picked by forcing Homie's ult, but you can't just walk into the middle of the lane and get killed like that.
And because of that, Hurriwind's got a bit of a lead in this mid lane now, about a level between the two of them. And that's very important to make sure Snoopy stays down here. They don't have the same amount of anti-heal on this squad as they did before. Bacchus obviously will give a little bit of reduction in healing done. But will we see Hurriwind really go for a Divine Ruin here like we did on the Agni?
Divine Ruin not nearly as good on Soul as it is on Agni, because you don't have the long-range AoE abilities to try and just poke people down. Soul is very much an all-in sort of god. There is a lot of poke to that Stellar Burst, but you still want to be using it to secure a kill later in the fight. You're not going to be able to apply that Divine Ruin passive as easily as on a god like Agni. Instead, it should be Homiefe picking up the Brawler's Beat Stick here. He's going to be the one making Snoopy's life difficult. He's going to be the one diving in, using Berserker's Barrage, double tapping him from a distance, and that's where that anti-heal passive is going to be more effective.
Double tap onto Andy, the flop not going to hit from Shadowq there as well, so they're just going to clear the mid-wave instead there. And you mentioned Homiefe, that's what Tolly was talking about. He expects Homiefe to be the be-all and end-all of this game for the most part. If he doesn't get going in this one, it'll go SoaR's way. If it does, well, it's all going to be on his back.
Well, he's looked good thus far. 0-0-3, has the assists on every single one of Denial's kills thus far. Setting up Vetium in the left lane, picking off Snoopy in the mid jungle as well. And if Tolly thinks it's the end-all be-all, he's got to be feeling pretty good right now.
I'm looking at the solo laners too, because the longer this goes on, neither of them have really given an inch to the other one whatsoever. Neither of them involved in any kills whatsoever. Pretty much just a farm off. They both made the rotations, so aggro. They've just not been there the time that the fight has happened.
It's just a matter of when Benji's going to come into these fights. If he can make an impact after the Nem ultimate has been used, he's going to be much more effective. But if Andinster could hold that ultimate until Benji shows up and use it on him instead, it could be a real turning point for SoaR.
Shadowq has backup here, so they're going to get control of those Harpies for a second, but it doesn't look like it went the way of SoaR there with the chicken in the mid lane.
Shoutouts to the burn animation on the minions helping us out there. That's when you can tell what team gets the mid Harpies.
Yeah, for the fans at home that don't really know and you can't really tell, because we struggle sometimes. Sometimes some of the gods have animations on, like Zeus, the electric. They'll frizzle a little bit there so you can know who exactly got them, and rather same way with that Sin Paints.
I like the ragdoll ones. Like Hercules 2 makes the minions kind of ragdoll. They
Into the air.
Yeah, they float everywhere.
They fly into the air. They're always fun to do. Benji on the right-hand side looking to be cheeky at the buff of Baskin, but with Andinster there, he's not going to continue being that way and going to have to back away and just farm up a little bit more. Homiefe, once again, handling himself onto the duo side consistently. Not really looked at the solo lane once this game.
Hasn't had to. It's been Benji being able to weather the Ravana storm. Now Denial pulling the Gold Fury. No Wrath available for them. SoaR knows this is happening. They did take a little bit of damage, but not enough for SoaR to hard engage.
Just presence, though, from SoaR there was enough for them just to walk back away. Denial. And in the end of the day, with Benji actually making that rotation to he applies pressure mid lane, but loses pressure in the solo lane. Benji's teleport is also down, where Baskin's different story. It's available.
So we talked about it a lot last game. How can Denial abuse the fact that Baskin's teleport was down in game 1? Well, now it's the opposite way. How well can Baskin keep Vamana in this lane and then use that teleport to his advantage? It should be a nice window here for SoaR to make something happen on this Gold Fury.
Now, if you are watching as a solo lane expert as well, or you're looking to learn more, watch what Baskin did in that lane. He pushed it in and then zoned off Benji as much as possible from getting to that wave, trying to deny as much as possible.
So you can either zone away the enemy solo laner, like you mentioned there, or you can set yourself up to go and proxy farm. You can hang out in the jungle and set yourself up to make it harder for Benji to get farm later on.
Or hang around a little bit too long and get ganked potentially here. Forced to ultimate on the right-hand side here. Benji, low on health for mana, no teleport available. SoaR have started the Gold Fury. Let's have a listen in to SoaR as they look for a pick.
This is good. Held it on her. Held it on her. Held it on her. Held it on her. On her is... Pulling gold, pulling gold, pulling gold, pulling gold. That's Soul Aegis in 3. Soul Aegis.
We're on gold.
I'm hitting Bacchus.
Soul
Aegis. Go. Soar's up in there. Soul 2 now. Thor in there. Watch for me. I need help. Thor in there. You good, Dean? Probably. Soul Aegis in 3. Soul Aegis in 3.
I shouldn't have beat that.
Yeah.
Ever. They're gonna look to make a play around your base down for sure. So just be careful of that. Look to help Snoopy right now, because
I just used my views. I'm back. I'll have Vegas there, so it's no big deal.
Soul Aegis, Andy.
okay.
Lefts and then rights. Lefts and then shortly after our rights.
The good thing about this too is they don't
Big
have
goal.
any with the mind rune. They don't have any anti-heal right now.
Come here.
Like literally no anti-heal right now. So
Yeah, I could come. Rights are right after.
So they get the Gold Fury really clean, but I love what we heard in the comms there. You heard Snoopy say his purification was down. He made a mistake with that, but don't worry, you've got Sanctuary coming up. And they also recognize that Denial will look to try and make a play around that. But they've also got no anti-heal. All interesting stuff.
Very, very big, and you can kind of get an insight to what pro-level comms are like during the downtimes. They're talking about what mid-camps are coming up, what they're going to be positioning for next, but overall, the idea of the team fight. It's Baskin letting everyone know that Hurriwind's Sanctuary is down, so this means that he's not going to be able to Sanctuary away the Nemesis ult.
Good double tap onto Snoopy there, but the sustain coming into play again. We mentioned no real anti-heal on this squad just yet, but the second relics are on the way. So far, not seeing one come out, as we do see Homiefe going for the purification and the meditation on the side of Benji.
We'll have to see if this heavy mace is going to turn into a Jotun's
It
Wrath
has to, right?
or Brawler's Beatstick.
Brawlers, I mean, it has to go Brawlers.
I would assume so, but I mean, Jotun's is just so core on Thor. That CDR is just so helpful. I wouldn't be surprised to see Homiefe try and delay that Brawlers a little bit longer just to get some more CDR built into his kit, but I agree with you. I think the correct pickup here would be a Brawlers.
I think under the circumstances of also Shadowq going for the Sovereignty first and not the Pestilence is probably one of the other reasons why you really need to get someone at this stage of the game. The Gold Fury going SoaR's way as well just puts him in a commanding position already. You can't let that healing also impact it even more.
Plus, with Benji going for the meditation instead of the weakening curse, it really forces Shadowq to make a decision here. Does he want to forego the shell, which pro teams value oh so highly, or does he want to go for the weakening curse? If he doesn't, then that means no weakening curses on the side of Denial. You see the sprint already picked up from Jigz. He assumes one is coming, even when they don't have healing, though, he does really favor this shell sprint combination.
Well, we do see Benji has at least picked up a pestilence, so they've got some anti-healing on the side so far. But Denial's strength of last game, if you actually look down their squad, they had pretty much everything that could give anti-healing on all their characters spread evenly. It wasn't just one person picking it up, the whole team were doing it.
Exactly, and it was a huge impact. I mean, we saw how well they were able to shut down Snoopy's healing and the healing from the Vamana ultimate onto Baskin. We'll have to see if anyone from SoaR is going to pick up a little bit of anti-healing to deal with that same ultimate, but this time on the side of Benji.
Well, for the time being with the Gold Fury down, I'm kind of looking towards Homiefe. Is probably the only one that will really look to make some plays on the Thor with the global rotation from the ultimate and the sky view that he can give. At the moment, though, it's all about control as we tune in with Benji under a bit of pressure here, taking a little bit more power than he wanted to. Meditation going to bait, however, the ultimate of Baskin. Who wins that one?
Yeah, definitely Baskin does, because he forced the meditation on the side of Benji, whereas he still has his available. Plus the Ravana ultimate not quite as impactful to get away as the big baby, I would say. In some instances, when you're stuck in the jungle, the ultimate from Ravana is going to be more useful, but overall, that big imposing colossal fury is a little bit more...
Baskin's getting very low on the right-hand side here. The fight is still raging as into the sky goes. Homiefe now looking for the cleanup. Not going to find the stun, unfortunately. And now it's surrounded onto the boys of Denial. 2 pinned under the tier 1 tower.
Sanctuary used just for now. Double tap is good onto Baskin, doing a ton of damage, but overhead kick is perfect. Andinster picks him up. He's 1 HP. Benji finds him.
But Benji's out of mana, and now Hurriwind's coming in too. Andy is forced to rotate back. He's got support in the jungle, however, from Metyankey hanging around, and the snipes are looking at Benji. All 3 connect, and Metyankey cleans up the solo laner.
Great rotation coming in from Met. Now they're going to be looking to push down this tier 1 tower on the right-hand side. Actually, instead, Snoopy and Andy are just going to heal up, throw some mean faces the way of Denial as they're doing this blue buff, while Metyankey is just farming up
They
mid.
want the blue buff, and Jigz is trying to bring them in so he can look for a pluck onto one of them. Disapparate is down there. Blue buff goes the way of Jigz. Win, win, win for SoaR. Now they're looking at the speed.
Another win, exactly. Met's going to be able to push down this tier 1 tower in middle too, it looks like. Vetium trying to get here in time. Don't know if he'll be able to. Saves it for now. Met using the astral arrows. Well, but Vetium's in a tough spot.
Purified and Sanctuary, and now bravely running away. The Lion jumps over the wall, but he can't jump across the beam. Snoopy picks up the kill, and Vetium falls as well. All from that first Gold Fury that we saw go down there, aggro, is starting to go in SoaR's favor, and it comes back to that Benji versus Baskin 1v1.
Baiting out that meditation, exactly. Then Baskin had his available, was able to stay alive just long enough to bait Homiefe in, and then he does fall, but the rest falls on the right side as well. Both
and now
buffs.
the Gold Fury is back up with Shadowq and Homiefe under pressure on the backside by Baskin. Shadowq has to flap over the wall then. Snipe not going to connect from Snoopy. Curses, but doesn't actually hit anyone, so the gap is going to be closed onto him. The Fat Man will fall towards the edge of the duo lane.
So Shadow did go for the curse, not going for the shell. Didn't get any value out of it this time. The rest of Denial concedes the Gold Fury. Instead, Homiefe going to this right-hand side, and I love the decision-making. If you're giving it up, give it up hard. There's no reason to stand there and watch the other team do it. Be productive with your time. Homiefe is going to get a tier 1 tower on the right-hand side. Looks like Denial maybe is trying to think about this.
Not with Hurriwind's mana being that low. There's no way you're going to try and commit to that. At the same time, you could also see where Homiefe was on the map. It's not going to be a
I feel like if Homie didn't push that right wave, they could have done that Fire Giant.
But it would have been clear as day they were doing it, right? Everybody disappears off the map all of a sudden. Where could they be?
Maybe, but we saw Denial sneak one away earlier in the tournament with a very similar sort of call. I believe it was up against SoaR as well in Game 2. They ended up losing that game despite the early Fire Giant, but it did give them an opportunity to get back into it. Maybe SoaR recognized it, but maybe not.
Well, Game 1, Game 2 have been very exciting so far between the two teams. Really high levels of play, honestly. The mechanics that have been involved have been great, and those small mistakes have actually come into play overall.
Without a doubt, just little things like the meditation baits, like, positioning a little bit too far forward. Look at the player damage from Baskin right now, by the way. I just took a look at the player damage charts, and I just didn't know, I didn't even see the number, but I saw how big that bar was, and I was like, holy cow, he's doubling the next highest almost.
But that's why we don't see a Langshan, is the answer. Baskin likes this god. That's all you need to say.
Very
if you don't see a god played, and you're like, why is it not played? And you look at the player net, Okay, I guess that's a good enough reason.
Good enough. Exactly. Yes, it would have been a masterpiece if Erlong Chen had selected, but you know, it's fine winning the game. There's no problem in that. A lot of Soul laners have started to fall off the Ravana train, but Baskin's still the conductor.
And Baskin will get the tier 1 tower on the right-hand side here as Andy does right around the back there looking for pressure onto Benji. He'll force him back for now. Another free win for SoaR Gaming, answering back the tier 1 tower that Homiefe stole on the right-hand side earlier.
Still no Witchblade for Benji. I really would have expected one by now. Up against so many auto-attack heavy characters, Nemesis, Ravana, and Rama all really rely on their auto attack, so a Witchblade would be excellent here.
Although you say that, I actually think SoaR could look for a Witchblade as well here. Obviously up against 2 in-hand Hunters for an extent here, with the Soul, with the Anhur. It's pretty useful to have it there too.
I'd rather see the Runic Shield though. Runic Shield a little bit better, reduces a higher percentage of the magical power, I think.
That's true.
And makes Hurriwind's job a lot harder.
Well, Hurriwind's job's in a real tough spot now. Sanctuary used as well.
Great
but a fantastic wall from Homiefe saves his mid laner's life. Now Jigz in trouble, looking the waters is down, remember. Forced to shell as Baskin comes in. Jigz still alive as the ultimate is popped there from Andinster as well to try and force the boys of Denial back.
And here's the healing. No anti-heal except on the side of Benji, means that Jigz can get a little bit healthy. Great wall, stops Snoopy from going anywhere.
But Snoopy Sanctuaries, all that damage that just came through. Did get stunned, but there's no follow-up because on the backside, they were looking towards Homiefe. The meditation comes out, but it wasn't enough. The snipe from Snoopy doesn't really hit home here, and everybody's still grouped up in this narrow corridor as Metyankey continues to push mid lane.
Look at the healing, 4,000 right now for Snoopy. He's got just as much damage as well. Doing both sides of the coin this time, not relying as much on just the healing.
Great
now it's
wall
SoaR
from
underneath the
Vetium
tower.
there. Metyankey looking to put some poke pressure on, but eats more of it and has to sustain still. The minions do get healed by that sustain as well. With that Rod of Asclepius being online now, they're not going to get the tier 2 tower, but they did considerable damage to it.
They can just wait, basically. They're just waiting for this healing to keep on going. Metyankey hitting level 20 at 21 minutes. He's up 3 levels onto Vetium. We talked about how good Vetium looked on Ram, and taking it away from him has been a really big boon for SoaR.
Gotta say, every single hunter in North American can play Ram. And that's pretty much the truth. Every
Yeah,
single one
Wowie
can.
looked good on it from Noble in Group B. Obviously, Barracuda had the big performance. The big Ram player on Eager, obviously Marvels.
Yep.
And then...
and Marvels always looks good on the Ram when he plays for Eager as well. It works out so well for him. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the one thing about Ram, and we don't talk about him enough here. He doesn't get played consistently. Like Jingwei and Sol and Freya, they're all up there. But Rama has just always been around, and everyone can play him.
I'll tell you what, we've seen the transition away from Jingwei, basically, into Rama. Jingwei still gets a lot of bans in the second phase, whereas Ram really doesn't see nearly as many. But I think with the performances he's had, it's time to start considering it. But that's the thing, is that if you could ban away one and get the other, it puts you in such a good position.
I am looking forward to this group closing out so I can look through the stat lines of how everybody has performed and see the underlying gods that were picked and banned this weekend that actually either had better performances than expected or worse.
Yeah, I mean, Vamana's been the one for me that's been really big. Had a much higher win rate than I was expecting coming in. Kind of flew under the radar as the second winningest solo laner during the online stages, but has really made a big impact overall here during the offline stage. Rama definitely another one of those gods for me.
And on the reverse side of things, over the negative lineup, I think Humbat's had a pretty poor LAN performance overall. Was picked a hell of a lot in the first few groups, not so much this one though.
No, Group C in particular was very heavy into Hunbats, but not as effective as I think a lot of those teams were hoping. Raijin very hit or miss over the course of the offline portion as well. You're right, that seems like fun. Now I'm excited. I was all sad that the lands were all ending, but the fun's just beginning.
We got Gauntlet next weekend for you PC people. If you're a console interested there as well, we got Gauntlet there on Monday and Tuesday. And then after that, it's Super Regionals, boys, and it's going to be a long one. 5 days of Smite action.
And the SCL Fall Finals as well. 2 weekends from now here at hi-rez.
That'd be more important, but however, trouble for Benji, but he popped his ultimate after he got hit by the Nemesis ultimate, so he's not going to have as many protections stripped away. Small mistake by Andinster, they're looking to burst him down. It will allow Benji out.
Snoopy also off the mark with the snipe, tried to make the big play over the wall, but had no vision of where that big baby was going. So 2 big ultimates down, snipe and the ult from Nem.
But because of that, they're going to rotate straight to the goal for you a second time here, so they're really feeling their team fight SoaR at the moment, and it's coming out big for them, especially with Baskin on the front side now, doing zone duty. The boys of SoaR can look to siege this down, and Baskin can keep a whole army away. But is he really keeping them away here, or is he actually making sure they're not doing fire?
He has to make sure they're not doing fire. Denial tries to do the sneaky play, but Baskin sniffs this one out, but it's actually Shadowq caught in a bad spot in the middle lane, crashing down his Homiefe, but it's met up into into the sky looking for the snipes.
And in the third one would have hit, but Dirty Jigz will steal it away. On the backside, Homiefe was looking at Met, but now Met turns the tide of battle with the support of Andinster 2. And SoaR, they can march on for the tier 2 in mid if they want.
Baskin picks up Hurriwind on the right-hand side. That SoaR not able to get away. Hurriwind has not had the impact that he wanted on this magical AD carry. 5 members of SoaR. No, Fire Giant still available, but they're looking at the structures instead.
They get a tier 2. The Phoenix is available. They've got Sustain with Raw, don't forget, so those minions can stay with him a little bit longer here. And they'll even tank up the tower and look for the pressure onto Benji. Forced to ult very early on. Vetium gets a good crit there onto Andinster, but he's completely ignoring it. Looking at Benji. Benji's one more hit from death. The big baby will fall again.
Met finally able to find that kill. Jigz can't take that one from his Hunter. 3-1 and 4. Met looking very strong on this ROM.
Really good performance from SoaR this game as well. I think both games have looked good from both teams. It was all small mistakes, and this comes back to me was that fight around Benji versus Baskin in the solo lane. From that moment onwards there, the rotation from both teams to that right-hand side developed the Gold Furies, developed this slow, slippery slope that we see SoaR have gone on.
And all of a sudden, 12,000 gold in the lead is SoaR. 16,000 experience as well, and that's really popping up across the board. 1 level for Baskin, but that's only because he hit level 20. 3 levels in the jungle for Andinster over Homiefe. Snoopy's got 2 levels, Jigz has 2 levels, and Metyankey has a level as well.
Well, taking into account SoaR will secure themselves #1 spot out of Group D, off to face Luminosity Gaming. If they win this game, they're set up to do so. Denial, however, if they lose this game, they will go off to face Group B's winner, which is Eager.
And I'm sure DJ Pernicus's notebook already has Bastet all through it. He's also going to be filling in some other gods, getting ready to go up against Denial. And like we mentioned during the pregame there, I don't think any team really wants to play Eager just because you don't know what to prepare against.
Well, we'll find out what both teams prepare for that one as we still see the conclusion of this game here. Speed buff being contested by SoaR one more time. Good pressure from Jigz, but missing that pluck has put him in an awkward position. Talking about awkward positions though, Andy wants Vetium, but Thor's in the sky.
Really good sprint coming out of Shadowq, trying to keep his Hunter alive. He's going to stay alive for now, but Homiefe won't. Met picks him up in the background.
You. It's high wound. Baskin jumps in there, but still Vetium is alive for now. Andy will pick up the kill. Metyankey, meanwhile, while all that was going on, secured himself a double kill. Denial are in trouble here. There's only 2 men left, and Hurriwind's the second to last to fall.
Shadowq now the last member alive, and SoaR don't even want to let him live. It looks like they're going to be going for the Titan. Who needs towers? Who needs Phoenixes? Who needs the Fire Giant? SoaR just need the 1 seed.
Introducing to you your #1 seed coming out of Group D. It's going to be SoaR Gaming, a very good online performance overall, and the LAN platforms was something that matched it.
So a lot of talk coming in here. Group D, Group of Death. Who's going to make it out? No one knows, but SoaR's going to be there, right? SoaR's going to be the ones to be. That's the guaranteed pick. Guaranteed first seed now. No surprise after the performance they had to open up the group stage on Friday. They looked phenomenal all the way through.
Did it with a set to spare of making sure they got the #1 seed there. It wasn't the best and cleanest over the weekend of all the groups we've seen, but it was good enough. And they've still got one more set to have a little bit of fun and chill out.
I mean, Denial overall, though, if you're looking at them, they're the only team that's been able to take games off of SoaR. Yes, SoaR does have the set ahead of them, but with nothing really on the line for them, I don't know how competitive these games will be necessarily. But Denial really surprised a lot of people, I think, looking very good throughout. Does drop a game to Enemy in there that they probably wish they could have back, but taking 2 games off of SoaR, splitting 2 and 2 with a team that looked as dominant as any team in the world right now, even up there with the likes of Energy and Orbit, has got to make the Wolfpack feel good.
I think anybody coming into Group D here would have just been happy of getting out of the group in the top 2, not falling down to the gauntlet where we have seen Enemy and Envy go to now. Both those teams, they've got a hard task now to get out of that gauntlet as well going forward. And Enemy's road, well, it can kind of start against SoaR in this final game if they want it to.
It definitely should be starting. That's exactly how Enemy should be looking at this game. They want to get themselves as good of a seeding as possible in the gauntlet. The less teams you have to face to get to Super Regionals, the better. That last team in the gauntlet that only has to play one best of 3 set in order to send themselves to Super Regionals has put themselves in a very good spot.
There's a couple of potentials here that we could have been done yesterday. We could have been done after the first game with who was going and what seeds, but luckily enough, it came down to the second to last game. Now we're going to the last one. But before we do that, we should head over to the analysts at the desk and see how they thought about SoaR's performance.
Yo, thanks a lot, Hindu. I appreciate you giving it over here. I want to give a special shout out to Aggro. Really deep analysis there. The less teams you have to face, the better chance you have of winning.
The probability is just in their favor, man.
I mean, it's really good. It's almost like if you kill the Titan, you win the game.
Just like that, John Madden. You know, you got a circle over there, then you connect it over there, and then he catches the ball, and it's a touchdown.
These strats are blowing my mind, actually. Never thought of them.
See, this is what you guys need more of. But as we watch that one, I think, you know, in all honesty, as much as I'm poking fun at sort of light analysis, I'm going to give some of my own. Metyankey.
Metyankey was definitely on point, I would say, that last time. Looking at the standings real quick, SoaR has confirmed their first spot coming out of Group D. They're going to come in first seed out of here, going to face Luminosity, I believe it is, in the Super Regionals.
Yeah, so SoaR came out of this LAN like a bat out of hell, and they crushed Pain to Beyond as well. I really enjoyed that. Pain to Beyond means meatloaf in French. Meatloaf is a 80s artist that made an album called Bat Out of Hell. You're welcome. I really enjoyed it. It was a joke to myself. But anyway, seriously, SoaR came out like a bat out of hell. They played absolutely insane. You know, we saw Eager play last in Group B, and I said, you know, Eager are playing like the best team in North America. Oh my God. And then we saw SoaR play, and I just went, well, should I delete that tweet? Like, SoaR were out of their minds. What is it about this team, Polar Bear Mike, that SoaR did so much differently?
I think they played their 3v3 better than any other team in NA, and they have Met, who's just a consistent role player who can pop off when he needs to, and Baskin's Baskin.
Yeah, you and I were talking about that, and I want to make sure we drive that home. When we say role player, that's not necessarily a negative thing. It's very important to be a role player on your team.
You can't win off of him. Like, you can't try to win off of just killing Met. He makes sure that option isn't there, and then if he gets to late game, he's just as impactful as any of the other four.
Exactly, and you know, I think Metyankey, this is the quintessential role player game where you see throughout the entire weekend, Metyankey sort of does his job. He doesn't lose lane, he does okay, and then exactly when you need it, Metyankey just comes out of nowhere. He gets double kills galore. That's exactly what we mean when we say that. And so he does very well. And like you said, the 3v3 there, I think that was accentuated when we saw Jigz pick his support in the latter half of the pick ban phase. The team really struggled there.
Yeah, we saw in the first game, he picked up Fafnir. It didn't have the same impact as the Sobek in game number 2. We were both surprised in the first game when he didn't go for the Ymir. He was hovering that option. It would have been a good pick considering there was 3 dashes, the Agni, the Amaterasu, and I believe it was Nemesis also that could have been potentially blocked by that Ymir, but overall just great adaptation switching his support picks.
I think the interesting thing, and the reason I thought they were going to go Ymir, is what SoaR has done well all tournament, especially with the Thor, is to split up fights and try to pick targets one by one. That's
Absolutely.
what they did. That second game versus Denial, they would have Andinster instantly Nema Vetium, and then you would see Met snipe him, get him out of the fight as soon as they can. They have a 4v4, and they're all turtled around, and they just clean up.
That's one of the things that I've noticed specifically about watching SoaR throughout the entirety of the fall split is their ability to isolate players. This was crazy. This was an absolutely perfect play by Homiefe that Denial just didn't care about. They were able to just come back or rather SoaR just didn't care about, and he just sort of bodied them out of there. And he played pretty well here.
It just seemed that the Nemesis was the better end of this whole set, right? We saw the Nemesis and the Thor being prioritized by both these junglers. Unfortunately, it was the Thor that lost, and we saw a little bit of a different mid this time around. Hurriwind was playing the Soul, something that we're not used to seeing out of him. He did do more damage, I would say, than Snoopy playing the Raw, but you can't really compete with the sustain coming out of the Raw in the mid to late game.
Right. And I think the other big key is that the reason I was surprised they opted with the Thor over the Nem in the first game was that Denial's really all about how aggressive can Homie be and how many kills can he go for, and the Nem stops Homie from hammering in and going into fights, and he just can't play the same.
There's a very dynamic group of players and group of gods, and we've got a group of teams going to Super Regionals. SoaR, obviously, as we're singing all of their praises, will be headed there, and we'll see some of the rest of the teams. SoaR, as we said, will face directly against Luminosity, so they'll have LG to worry about. Eager versus Denial, since Denial came in as second here. Orbit versus Obey on the side of Europe, and then Energy versus Sanguine. Yeesh, talking about lopsided. SoaR versus Luminosity. How do you think that one's going to go?
I think that's the most interesting matchup of all four to me, only because they were scrim partners. They know everything about each other. It's very, very unlikely that they're going to see huge meta shifts in their playstyle in the next 3 or so weeks. So that one, just in terms of how well teams know each other, I think is the most interesting. In terms of how close the matchup is, I think Denial and Eager is probably the closest. I think both of the EU ones are pretty straightforward.
Do you think we're going to see Soul at all at that set?
The
Luminosity versus,
SoaR, yeah,
SoaR.
for sure, yeah.
It's probably the only one we're going to see Soul in. I've reached my quota. I'm done talking about Soul. In fact, I'm done talking at all. We've got Jigz standing next to the man, Adonis. Hey, guys, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm here with Jigz, team captain, support player for SoaR. Just talk to me about the feeling on the team. I mean, you guys pretty much dominated this group, only Denial kind of leaving you guys tripping up a little bit, but your first seed coming out of Group D.
Yeah, we pretty much expected to come in really strong because in the online stages, we beat all of these teams 2-0, and we had really clean victories against them. So we didn't expect too much, but I don't think any of us expected to play as perfectly as we did in some of the the Shadowq games we had.
It really seemed like another level, even from your spring split roster, which was obviously incredibly talented as well. Now you're going to go up against LG. What are your expectations, John? I mean, PBM, said it on the desk right there.
Yeah.
You guys are scrim partners, correct?
Yeah.
So what do you think how's that matchup dynamic going to work out?
Well, first of all, we have to get some new scrim partners.
Sounds about right.
And yeah, I think there's going to be a little mini SoaR versus LG meta that develops in our series. So
talk to me about that a little bit, because we always talk about how kind of mini metas develop. I mean, each group, right? The sustain meta kind of started to come through, but it was less prominent in this group. How does that come about?
Pretty much on LAN, you have such little games to adapt. So if someone's pulling out the Raw and it's obviously a huge problem, you just take it off the board and you don't deal with it, and then you fix it later, because you don't necessarily have time to sit there and scrim against it again and again and again for a week like you would in online.
And figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the past a little bit now. You were TSM's coach last year. You guys had that unfortunate collapse, but you came out with a really strong roster in the spring split. How did you go about picking out that original 5?
I pretty much just thought those were really underrated players that other people weren't going to pick up. We originally had Meerkat, and we were scrim partners with Luminosity back then as well, when they were Looney Tunes, and we were scrimming against them pretty much every game, and we pretty much won all of our scrims against them, except for when Baskin just popped off entirely on Vamana, which he always does. So eventually we convinced them, you're the only reason they win, we're the only reason to beat the rest of your team. Let's make a switch.
And it seemed to work out. And then talk to me a little bit about, you guys obviously dropped Hurriwind and Homiefe followed, but you picked up Andinster and obviously Snoopy as well, and a very intelligent and mechanically strong player. There's a lot of similarities to you guys in energy right now. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, Andinster is pretty much the North American adapting. He's our shot caller, he's our mechanical best player. He just makes all the plays for us, pretty much. Even if I'm initiating, he's pretty much directing us around. Kind of the play style we have is me and Andinster kind of run around everywhere, and we either group up with Baskin and kill someone, or we group up with Met and kill someone, or we group up with Snoopy and kill someone. Well,
you guys are only a best of 5 away from Worlds. What are your expectations for the end of the season?
We're definitely going to Worlds.
Are you winning Worlds?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Oh, the confidence not there.
Don't have enough practice against Energy, but we do have the practice against DreamHack, so we've got a much better idea going into them this next time.
I'm actually really excited for that matchup. Maybe it'll be our World Final. Still a long way to tell, though, and we still have one more set to play, and you got to get back on the stage. You're going to be facing off against Enemy. Enemy still playing for those ever-important seeding points, trying to get through the gauntlet, trying to get a better position for them. We'll be back after a short break to watch the final match of Group D.